Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to start off by trying to share my screen here. I know last time this gave me a problem, so everybody let me know if you guys can see this okay. Can everybody see that all right?
Yeah,
Cool.
we
All
see
right.
it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So this morning, our Tech Hub community coffee, we have a really important discussion this morning about building our entrepreneurial ecosystem. For us, Tech Hub, we, a little bit for anybody that doesn't know this, is we have 4 main pillars of talent, brand, community, and now one of our new pillars is startups. We've always done a lot for startups and a lot in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, but we have this year doubled down on that and making sure that that is one of our priorities. So for anybody that's not familiar, those are the 4. A little bit about our speakers this morning. We've got Maria Derchi Russo, Executive Director at Refresh Miami, John Wensveen, Chief Innovation Officer at NSU or Nova Southeastern University, James Irvine, Director at the Founder Institute. I believe he's over the Florida chapter. Jim Ryan, co-founder at the Venture Mentoring Team. And our sponsor this morning is South Florida Business and Wealth. And I know that we do have Mark on with us this morning, so we'll bring him up in a minute to say a few words. And also, while I'm thinking of it as well, is Beth. Again, thank you so much for your ASL interpretation. She is sponsoring the ASL for us this morning as well. Our whole goal and mission is to build South Florida into a tech hub. So with that in mind, our community creed, we want to invite everybody to the table. So our community creed, Tech Hub South Florida is wholeheartedly committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, and inclusive community for all. We put inclusivity first, engage with others, are considerate to all, and don't sell to people. So currently, Tech Hub South Florida, we are made up of over 200 corporate members, of course, a bunch of wonderful community partners, and thousands of talented professionals across the region. A few of our companies here, Office Depot, Boca Codes, City Furniture, Florida Crystals, Carrier, we've got a bunch of the major ones, but of course we've got, again, a lot of our startups, small to medium-sized businesses, and up. A little bit about our memberships without going too deep into it here is we've got 4 different corporate membership levels where we do offer different benefits to give you guys exposure, talent and job listings, speaking opportunities, different member spotlights. But for anybody that's listening that may be interested in getting their company involved, please go to techhubsouthflorida.org and there's a button there, Join Today, where you can learn about some more information. Of course, you can reach out to myself or Monica Rojas as well. A little bit about our events. So right now we currently have Tech Talks every Monday night. Our community coffees are alternating on Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. And I keep forgetting to change the slide. Our podcasts are actually used to be Wednesdays, are now Tuesdays, alternating with the community coffees at 8 a.m. Our food for thoughts are our weekly lunch and learns that we host on Fridays from 12 to 1. And those are always introductory workshops and typically more technical, those type of things. For anybody that's looking for a job, we do have a page on the website, our careers tab, where you can actually look at a full job board. But we also have something, a resume distributor. So if you go there, you can actually just upload your resume. And once you hit submit, it goes to a bunch of our members and companies that have signed up. And there's no weed through process. So basically it goes directly to them and we are not a middleman, just so you can get your resume out there. And last but not least here, we have a pretty active Slack channel. If you go to techhubsouthflorida.org/Slack, or if you would like to be added to our e-newsletters that go out every Monday afternoon, you can actually just text us your email to 561-250-7206, and we'll make sure to get you added there. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Monica, if you could spotlight Mark for us from South Florida Business and Wealth, I'd love to have him come up and say a few words as the sponsor this morning.
Yes, I'm sorry, Nikki, what's Mark's last name?
If I'm pronouncing it right, Freundlich.
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 But that was pretty close.
Freundlich, I know.
Yeah. One sec.
Great.
Like I knew I might ruin that one.
That's quite all right. Not many people get it right. But Nikki, thanks so much for having us. We're excited to be sponsor of Tech Hub South Florida Coffee Community Events. And good morning, everyone. And just to give you a little bit about South Florida Business and Wealth, we're South Florida's premier business magazine, serving Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, primarily through our monthly magazine, which is distributed to approximately 20,000 C-suite executives. And we also have our digital editions as well. We help our clients in a lot of different ways in addition to the magazine. We connect them through a robust portfolio of digital and social media strategies, including our 4-time-a-week e-newsletter to more than 40,000 South Florida execs, as well as our thought leadership pieces on our website. So anyone on this call, please feel free to send me any press releases that you have on new developments at your organizations. We also supplement these strategies with something we call virtual connects, which are panel discussions that we hold periodically, not too different from what we're doing here today, covering topics from healthcare to technology and real estate. And we also celebrate successful professionals 9 times a year with our awards event, ranging from celebrating young professionals to healthcare, prestigious women awards. We've got something new this year called Diversity and Inclusion Awards. We've got our Design Excellence Awards. So it's pretty important to us to help celebrate the successful professionals within the South Florida community. And lastly, we produce an annual magazine called the South Florida Legal Guide, now in its 21st year. So you can see we're pretty busy, but we love sponsoring your events and look forward to today. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Mark. We always appreciate it. And thank you for being able to join us too, to do a little overview there. And again, thank you both Mark and Beth for ASL Interpretation, both the sponsorship. We are very lucky to have you guys with us each morning. So we're going to go right into the discussion here this morning. How we're going to do this here is I'm basically just going to ask a question at each of the panelists, but of course, anybody, please feel free to add on to that person's answer. And what I'm going to do to get started is actually, I'm just going to go with who's ever first on my screen. If each of you can just kind of tell us who you are and a little bit about your organization, and then we'll go right into it. The first one that I have on my screen here is Jim Ryan.
Morning.
Morning, morning.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks Tech Hub for putting us all together this morning. So I'm Jim Ryan. I'm a 20-year entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur based in Broward County. Built a few businesses, and one of our largest companies is a 20-year company that has over 2,000 employees in 3 countries. And about 6 years ago, got very active and involved with the startup community, and started mentoring and supporting some early accelerators, became an angel investor, and then started and co-founded an organization, 501c3, called the Venture Mentoring Team. And the idea of the Venture Mentoring Team is really to support entrepreneurship and startups in the local community. We're a nonprofit. We're supported by the multiple grants and corporate sponsors. One of our grants was awarded to us by the Knight Foundation. And our mentors generously donate their time, men and women, successful entrepreneurs and executives that support the community. And we really consider ourselves the connective tissue for the startup community, supporting accelerators, incubators, universities, and so forth, providing mentorship. And many of the top 50 startups in the last few years were supported by the Venture Mentoring Team.
Thank you so much, Jim. I've got next John on my screen.
Thanks, Nikki. Good morning to everybody. My name is John Wensveen. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at NSU and the Executive Director of the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. I'll refer to that as the Levan Center from this point onward. And you may have heard about some great buzz that's happening here in South Florida. We are designing a brand new innovation center model to support the founder's journey, literally from the birth of an idea through successful exit of a company around 4 pillars of ideate, incubate, accelerate, and post-accelerate. And our 3 themes are innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. We're building a 54,000 square foot facility, which is very extensive in terms of its footprint here at the NSU main campus. And we are under construction, and happy to report that we're almost 3/4 of the way through, and we're on target for a summer 2021 opening, and can't wait to be able to open up this resource to the South Florida community.
Thank you, John. That's super exciting. I know we've been waiting for that for a while. So, Maria, I've got you next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Executive Director of Refresh Miami, which has served as the hub of the tech and startup community here in Miami for the last 15 years. We have close to 12,000 members, and our whole mission is to educate, inspire, connect, and grow the South Florida tech and startup community. We do that in multiple ways. One are through our events, which are currently on pause. But we also kind of serve as a digital hub. So our website and email newsletter kind of keep the community up to date on the latest news, events, jobs, resources, and opportunities. And in the next few weeks, we're about to launch a new platform that we hope will better connect everybody digitally and break down some of the silos that currently exist in the ecosystem. So really excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. And as you know, we love you guys and all the newsletters and things that you guys post out. You guys are always a good source of news for us. So thank you. And James, last but not least.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm James Irvine, and I'm the director of the Founder Institute chapter here in Florida. What we are is an early stage pre-seed accelerator for startups looking to get launched. So we really focus on entrepreneurs who are in the earliest stages. They have an idea, maybe they're working on it a little bit, but they really haven't gotten out into the market yet. And we take them through our 3-month program, help them to get launched, fully formed properly and out into the market. And our goal really is to just make as many startups and businesses as we can, empower as many entrepreneurs as we can. Our program is very agnostic to all industries, and we're really excited at the whole move to virtual. We've been able to expand across the state, and currently we're in our recruiting period right now. So you're going to see a lot of community events from our end as well over the next 2 months or so. And our cohort number 4 will be launching on June 15th.
Perfect. Thank you so much, James. And James, we are actually going to start with you for our first question here. So the first question I have outlined just to kind of get this conversation started is when we're talking about an entrepreneurial ecosystem, can you describe what's the difference between having an actual ecosystem versus just an area that's filled with different businesses? What does an ecosystem actually mean to you?
Yeah, great question. So an ecosystem to me, and I guess by definition, is a system that works together harmoniously. So having all of the businesses and all of the community, I think is very, ecosystem is very synonymous with community, right? Having not only all of the businesses, but all of the surrounding institutions, such as the universities, all working together.
For more than 20.
So yeah, an ecosystem really is something that brings the community together, allows everyone to work together and create more opportunities for one another. So I know just the guys on the panel here, I work with everyone here. VMT has been very good with working with our organization. We've been very good with sharing our entrepreneurs with them. Maria and Refresh are great about posting all of our events, and we use them to find a lot of active things that are going on in the community. And I just spoke with John the other day. We're looking forward to partnering with the Resource Center when that launches. And then it goes further, right? The more connected it could be across school systems, government, different organizations, small, large, corporate startups, the better the ecosystem overall can be.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. And did anybody want to add to that description or definition, which I think was very good, by the way, James?
Could Nikki? So an innovation ecosystem, as we define it, consists of 7 key elements. And when we look at the South Florida innovation ecosystem, we're very strong on 5 of the 7, which means that we have an opportunity to really start to fill the gap on the remaining 2. And when you look at what those 7 key elements are, it's entrepreneurs, it's investment capital, so the access to the funding mechanisms, it's a workforce, and by workforce, I mean a talented, skilled, qualified workforce, social and professional networks, the business environment, the quality of life, and then research universities. And as I mentioned, we're strong on 5. The 2 that we're a little weak on is the talent. So we have lots of talent. We have an abundance of it here in South Florida, but there's an opportunity to upskill and reskill and create new skills, especially in the technology sector. So that's the largest gap from our perspective. And then the other is the access to the funding. So there's lots of love money in South Florida. It's easy to get those few thousands of dollars, but when you talk about angel investment and private equity and venture capital and institutional financing, that's where the big challenge is, and that's where we need to improve upon.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Actually, that was perfect transition because that actually went right into my next question. So I wanted to actually see if Jim can follow up a little bit to your statement there, because, you know, my next question literally was, what components or resources are needed to make up an entrepreneurial ecosystem and to allow it to thrive? So I'm curious, coming from his side also, if there's something you can add there, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, you know, James was great with the introduction, and John laid out some almost all the pillars. If I could be so bold to add one more, is the support from the public sector as well. Getting government involved is extremely helpful. We've seen, you know, Mayor Suarez out of Miami do some tremendous campaigning and support and waving the banner for startup activity in Miami. It's great to have the public sector help support this endeavor and working with, as James described, our current ecosystem, and then plugging in how can the public sector help scale what we're doing today.
And actually, I had, this is just an impromptu question here, but, you know, we're talking about the public sector, and I've heard multiple times from people that come from Silicon Valley and some of the other areas of New York or Austin that that's one of the major differences, is they feel like they have the support of the community and everybody's kind of speaking the same language. Does anybody here have any experience with some of those other areas or other hubs or entrepreneurial ecosystems that maybe you could speak on that for a second?
Yeah, so you know, I lived in New York prior to moving down to Miami, and I wouldn't say that I used the local government all that much, but I know that they were absolutely there and available, and definitely were very forward thinking in terms of trying to support business initiatives. And I don't think that what I've seen here in Florida, or in Miami at least, where I live, that we're that far behind. You know, they have a lot of great government resources. You know, when I first got here, I was launching a co-working space. That's what brought me down here, which it never launched for various reasons, mostly permanent construction delays. But I worked with the Beacon Council and several other of the government organizations pretty closely, and they were, you know, really, really helpful. Wynwood Bid, a couple others, just right off the bat. And I thought, you know, being another New Yorker coming down here trying to do things, they'd kind of put me aside, but they didn't. Everyone was very welcoming, supportive. It was easy to navigate. So I think there's a pretty good, strong resource from the government here.
Good, thank you, James. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Maria. You want to add something?
No, I completely agree with James. And when I lived in Chicago, that was when they were kind of launching 1871, and the government was definitely kind of involved in backing that. I wasn't as closely related, so I'm not sure to what extent they were involved. But I do feel like Miami is doing a great job. The DDA, the Miami Downtown Development Authority, has been a huge supporter, and we've been very closely aligned with them for many years. And I think now with everything that's going on, some of the other mayors are starting to kind of understand like, oh, we should play a bigger role. I don't think they were ever against it. I think now we're just more on their radar and they're understanding that kind of we can serve as a kind of impromptu economic development arm for them. So that's been good. I know that the panel you guys hosted a few weeks back with a bunch of the mayors was great. So it's really wonderful to see them starting to get a bit more involved now.
Agreed. Yeah, and bringing up the EDO office also, the Beacon Council, James, is that I think we have some really great economic development offices here, and I know that the three main that everybody's talking about is the Beacon Council, Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, which also has Tech Gateway, which has been really good in being that outward branding arm for our region, and then of course the BDB Palm Beach County. So we've got some pretty strong EDO offices as well.
Agreed.
Sorry, I'm just trying to watch you guys to see who's kind of taking themselves off mute and stuff, just in case if you guys want to say something.
So Nikki, I think there's another thing to add in there too. When we talk about the public and private sector, and you look at Silicon Valley, and I've spent considerable time there, and also had the opportunity to work in the New York, ecosystem, is that one of the great things that Silicon Valley has is access to commercial labs and then government research centers, and then you involve your research institutions, and then you mix the private and public sectors together. But another opportunity I think in Florida is that among our local municipal governments, they have to interact and collaborate more. So it's not talk and planning, it's let's get to the next level and be action oriented, and let's eliminate the invisible walls that exist between the counties throughout the state. And then how do we get the state government more involved in what we're doing? Because I think that we misallocate a lot of our resources and we don't put them into the things that have the best return on investment. So we can have all of those key elements of an innovation ecosystem, 100% of them, but as Jim mentioned too, it's how do we add that extra element? And unless everybody is collaborating together and there's a strategic oriented action plan where we measure those results and keys for success, it's very difficult to move the needle. But the great thing about South Florida and all the eyes that are on us right now is that we are moving the needle. And the COVID situation, despite the negative impact around the world, has actually been very positive for South Florida in terms of growth and new opportunities that maybe didn't exist prior. So I'm very optimistic about the future, but we need to do a better job of aligning the municipal and state governments together.
Important, yes, and actually, going right along with what all of you are saying is like, I'm curious, Maria, I wanted to ask you, your opinion, because obviously you've been included in the startup ecosystem here. I mean, starting obviously from Miami, but now covering, some stuff in Broward and Palm Beach County as well. Is how have you seen our startup ecosystem kind of move and transition over the years? And then, can you give us an overview of like the South Florida startup community? Like, what is it that you see, and how do we compare to other ideal ecosystems?
So sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Is that just me? No.
You sound okay to me. I don't hear anything.
Okay, never mind. Now it's better, I think. So, it's been interesting before I joined Refresh 5 years ago, I was in this kind of working at startups. And then during my time running Refresh, I've also spent some time at the University of Miami in their entrepreneurship department and an accelerator venture capital fund. So I've been kind of trying to get the view from different areas of an ecosystem. And it's certainly gone through I think it's natural growth of like, I am a part of this other organization of ecosystem builders across the US that come together twice a year to kind of share best practices and learn from each other. And it seems like all of us kind of go through this natural progression. And so, now, we're kind of like in our mature teenage years, early 20s. We've kind of attracted a lot of kind of great accelerators and now a lot more funders. One thing I think we still need to work on in comparison to the ideal ecosystem is, from what I hear, it's, we're pumping out a lot of early entry-level talent, but there's not enough companies that are willing to take in that entry-level talent and really develop them. A lot of companies just want to go straight to the senior level. So to a certain extent, a lot of companies are just poaching the same senior level talent from each other versus really trying to grow that pipeline. So something I'd really like to see is more programs to develop entry-level talent and give them the opportunities so that we can truly have this strong pipeline of candidates. So I think that's one thing I often hear from even the bigger companies not wanting to kind of take that on. So I hope that's something that will change kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I agree, Maria, that, talent is definitely a very important piece of the puzzle, because continually we're losing a lot of these junior people that leave and feel like they have to find opportunities. But the problem is when they leave, it's really, really hard once they've got those skills to get them to come back. So I think that that's a very important piece.
And sorry, one thing to add, I also think that, and something I encourage some of the startups in the ecosystem to do is, I think they assume that they'll just put up a job description on the university website and then they'll get a flurry of applications. But a lot of these students, if they're not familiar with the company, it's hard for them to take that gamble and say, oh, I'm willing to go work at this no-name company I've never heard of. So the startups that I have heard that have been successful in recruiting talent from some of the universities are really on campus, making sure that the company, the students know who they are and get them excited about their mission. And that's what I'm hoping some of our news articles will do. And so we're trying to make sure the students are reading up on these news articles so they can follow the progression of these companies and that they'll feel more comfortable taking maybe the lesser known company out of college than feeling like they have to leave and go to Microsoft or a necessarily big name. Not that that's bad, it's wonderful too, but just to give them kind of more options.
Exactly. And I think it's important too, Maria, that point is just being more intentional about the recruiting process. And I think that'll also help with diversity inclusion, because in general, South Florida is a very diverse place, but it doesn't mean that our companies are currently, or that our tech departments are, because really we're not there yet. So I think that, not to say that we can't be very diverse and inclusive here in South Florida, because I think we've kind of got a one up on a lot of regions across the country with that, but still being intentional, making sure that we are going out, like you said, to universities. We've got one of the, Florida Memorial University that's historically Black college here as well, and making sure that we are targeting some of those students, I think is an important piece as well. So
and Nikki,
oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, being in the entrepreneurial community for quite some time. I had dark hair back then when I started my company, and the litmus test for finding advisors and mentors, is if you had gray hair, you looked for men and women that had gray hair. So today, the entrepreneurial ecosystem has really matured, especially over the last 5 to 7 years. I hear a lot about talent. That there's a need for talent, and I'm really excited about the Knight Foundation giving a wonderful grant to the University of Miami and FIU to help support, education and data science. I'd like to see more of that coming, where we can plug in dollars. I know John would be happy to hear this as well, that we could plug in dollars into these university centers. But it's really incumbent upon us as business leaders to really find the talent and coach up the talent, mentor the talent. And I think there's a tremendous amount of talent here that's really untapped. In addition to that, if you look at the immigration from South America and the Caribbean, I've got offices in Colombia, and there's a bursting tech community throughout Latin America, and they see South Florida as really a mecca for the alternative to Silicon Valley. Some have connections here and so forth. And they see access to things like capital and mentorship and network here in South Florida. So I see a lot of that talent coming up through the Caribbean, through Central and South America. So I think between some of the things that we're doing and seeing more recently with some accelerators at FAU, at FIU, at Broward College, at Nova University, some of the accelerators I also see throughout this immigration through South America. I think the talent is coming, and it's coming in a large way. I would add, I'm sure some of you have seen the Wall Street Journal article from last week that there was a net sum gain of 0 from people that were immigrating to Florida, but the same amount of people were departing Florida. So it's really curious to look into that data set and really understand who's leaving and who's coming. Are we seeing people coming with dollars and talent, and how is that going to add to this ecosystem that James described earlier? So anxious to see more of that data set.
Yeah, and thank you for adding that, Jim, as well, because, immediately, of course, I'm sure a lot of people's mind went there too, is that, for anybody that's unfamiliar with a lot of the startup ecosystem and the folks that are coming from Latin America as Emerge. I mean, they're a prime example, and they're literally, their whole basis is of being the gateway to Latin America, and the Latin America to be a gateway, here to the US. So I think that's a really, really important discussion, Jim, that you brought up. I feel like that could be a whole nother panel discussion. So I do want to go back to a little bit, John, question is for you, but going back to what you were talking about before, I wanted to see if we can dive a little bit deeper into some of the single issues or goals that our region needs to address or prioritize in order to improve our South Florida entrepreneurial ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about those 2 points that you feel that we're missing? And I want to see if we can kind of open up a couple of minutes here on that and dive deeper into that.
Sure, I think that's another panel in its own right.
I know,
But
I think a lot of these questions are.
But often we compare ourselves or many people compare what's happening here in Florida to Silicon Valley, and I always like to make a little precursor there, saying we can never copy what Silicon Valley does. We're our own unique environment. We can certainly adapt from some success strategies, but if I have to say there's one word that makes them successful, it's collaboration. And that's what we need to do a better job of. It's collaboration among all stakeholders, and there are stakeholders that aren't even in our conversation in some cases. So how do we identify them and put them together under one roof, if you will? But when we look at those two gaps in our market here, the talent and then the access to funding, these are significant areas that we have to improve upon. And one of the challenges that we have, and it's not just here in South Florida, is that academia, generally speaking, dictates to industry what their needs are rather than listening to industry to find out what their needs are. And we need to do a better job of aligning industry and education together so that we co-invest as one and sunset programs that don't make any sense, that are no longer relevant, and create new programs at an accelerated pace that are relevant. And one of the biggest issues that we have here in South Florida in particular, as it relates to technology and attracting entrepreneurs and attracting industry and growing them, and we are going to move the needle on it, but there are about 16 key subject areas that our academic system, from literally preschool through middle school, high school, public colleges, private universities, public universities, et cetera, are not touching on. And I can name each one of those areas, and we need to create these programs. And if we don't do it, corporate America is going to do it on the behalf of higher education in particular. And when you look at the number of colleges and universities across the nation, they're actually closing their doors. There's less and less on an annual basis. And there are more and more, in quote, corporate universities that are recruiting their own employees and training them the way that they need them to be trained. So that's a significant area of improvement for us as we move forward. And then again, going back to the funding, we have a lot of stuff going on here in our backyard, but how do we better align that system? And then how do we connect that regionally, nationally, and even internationally? And I think, as we've seen with COVID, that funding sources aren't necessarily investing in a 60-mile radius of where they live anymore. It's where's the right opportunity, because everything can be done through technology and virtual manners, and there are different ways of increasing that. So how do we do a better job of identifying those sources and then putting them together?
Don, I wanted to throw out a couple of the comments here that came in chat. I've heard this come up quite a few times too. So I had Clinton here that made the comment, I'm a computer scientist, Colgate University. I've been half Black, half Jewish, white my entire life. However, the biggest discrimination I've faced in tech has been ageism by far. Once I hit 50, he's saying he suddenly became a dinosaur. And we've heard this over and over. And I know, of course, there's a big discussion around also the junior talent and building those up and making sure that we're mentoring those and help moving them up the ladder. But for anybody on the panel here, I definitely want to address this, was ageism is definitely an issue as well. So are there people, organizations, that are focusing on this? What can we do about this? I mean, this has definitely been something that's come up multiple times. And I know there's folks, of course, from some of the, like I see Todd here this morning, from like some of the coding and boot camp schools like Boca Code. I mean, basically helping reskill people. But I'm definitely curious what you guys think on that topic as well, because I just thought that was a really important comment there in chat.
So I think this is a very important topic, and I don't believe in ageism. And what's great about this talent that we have here in South Florida is that we have an excess supply of talent. That's a generic term, lots of talent. which means that we have a huge opportunity to not only create new talent, but to reskill the talent that we have and then upskill the talent that we have. And if you look at the world of acceleration that we live in, that's not a trend, that's forevermore. And this disruptive environment that's never going to change is that we need to be able to tap into the talent that we have at any age level, at any experience level, because all of that talent is needed. So there's no such thing as age discrimination. There shouldn't be. And anybody at 50, 60, 70, I was talking to an 80-something-year-old person the other day that was learning how to get a new skill around IT automation. And anybody can learn it if they're willing, and we have to have the resources and infrastructure to help support it. But ageism should not exist because everybody is a skilled piece of talent as we move forward and needed.
Yeah, if I can add to that too, is that, to answer Clinton, this question is obviously it's a real challenge. And, look, it's the entrepreneur mantra to adapt and pivot when you can. And look, under COVID, there are many people in that situation, whether it's ageism or otherwise. Obviously this past year, people in the retail hospitality industry, many have had to pivot into completely different industries to survive. So look, I think you're never, I shared about my gray hair earlier. I don't think you're too old to change and to adapt and to learn new skills. I would just encourage Clinton to learn as much as you can, to not let that hold you back. And again, it's about adapting or pivoting, because tomorrow's challenges could be something completely different. And those that are strong, that can really roll up their sleeves and learn and adapt, are the ones that thrive and succeed.
Thank you both for addressing that. I do appreciate that, because I know that was not expected as far as a question, but I do love that you guys both were willing to address that.
I wanted to ask one thing, John. I don't want to do it now because this is your meeting. My name is Professor Debbie Barris, but I really welcome the opportunity for you to talk to my associate dean and my dean at Palm Beach State College, because we really do care about collaborating with our community, but I would like to just take that offline. So later on, I'll email you about it. I just wanted you to know that.
I'm putting my email in the chat. I did it earlier, but just in case, I'll just repeat it again.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just keeping with time here, because I know we've got about 15 minutes left. I do want to address this next question to James. So James, we talked a little bit about, higher education, the coding and boot camps. We're talking about the EDOs, all these different people and the different community partners. So who do you think should be orchestrating the ecosystem to ensure that goals are being met and the results are being made? Do you have any idea of who that should be? Who should be the key person or key player or key organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really tough question, because everybody, for one, has their own agendas, which makes it kind of tough to have a unified front oftentimes. But simply put, I think everybody has to be accountable to a certain level. If you're an industry leader, what ecosystem and community you reside over, and which communities that you partner with and have interactions with. So the more that people can, deliver not only on the ecosystem or the community that they're leading forward, but keeping the partners accountable, kind of like what John was saying, right? Mm-hmm. Especially the universities, I think those are a very tough one, because they're siloed. The government obviously sits at the highest level. But using your voice to influence the decisions that maybe the dean or the mayor is putting forward is probably the best way, because I think they're probably at the highest levels.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody else want to add to that?
I can add to that. I think James is correct. And in a dream world, it would be a state level organization that was non-biased and was able to incorporate everything. That's challenging. And when you're looking at a city, it's a little easier because it's just a city. When we're looking here at South Florida, which is truly the land of opportunity in terms of creating a nationally ranked tech Tech Hub is it's an organization that's fairly representative of the Tri-County area, but doesn't have an agenda. It has a movement, it has a mission, and everybody buys into it. And the challenge is getting all of the current stakeholders to actually agree upon that, because no matter what, no matter how much we talk about collaboration, there are multiple agendas, a lot of claim of real estate, and we have these invisible walls, as I mentioned earlier, that we truly have to break down. And if we can figure out what that looks like in terms of a strategy, we're going to have huge success. And it is very possible, but it is moving a mountain, but we're certainly moving in that direction.
Thank you, John. Maria, I want to ask this next question of you is, I'm sorry, this was for Jim. Actually, my next question after that is Maria, I apologize. Jim, I want to ask, how can both startups and more mature firms determine if a specific ecosystem is right for them? Because as much as I think we want to say South Florida is for everybody, it may be not, or even within the region, maybe Miami's better for somebody, Palm Beach County. I mean, how can somebody decide if there are a more mature firm or a startup? How do they decide where to go?
Look, I think it's about, in research, investigation, asking for referrals. And I agree with you. I think there are different cultures, there are different skill sets and tools within these different accelerators and universities and what have you, co-working facilities. And, maybe you're looking for networking. Maybe that interests you, and maybe CIC in Miami might be better suited for you. Maybe you want to be part of a program and Founders Institute. Jinx has a wonderful organization, Founders Institute. So I think it would be smart. Entrepreneurs are to roll up their sleeves and do the research, interview. Ask for referrals and see what's the right fit. What are your needs? Are you looking for capital? Do you need to participate in an accelerator? And then are certain university accelerators and incubators have greater accesses to those networks? So I think it would be smart business for the entrepreneur to really do the homework, do the research, and ask for referrals.
Where would you say, Jim, for those that are not familiar with our community, where would be like a number one place to start as far as learning about the community?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't, Knight Foundation puts out a book, Raul and the team in Miami has put out a book for, listing sort of who's who. There's, I believe someone connected at Synapse in Tampa also put sort of a list, website together, basically, listing out all sort of resources for the entrepreneur, which I think was I think it's called Open Secrets. I'm not exactly sure what the title is. Anyone feel free to chime in with that on the chat. But look, there are some published areas where you can kind of find out who's who and where and what's going on. Obviously, Tech Hub and Refresh Miami are both organizations have been wonderful in publishing information about what's going on in the community and what's on the sort of conferences and seminars, talks that can share that information.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. And Maria, I want to follow up that last question to Jim was, what kind of members or companies is our South Florida startup community looking to attract and retain? Are there people that we're missing or that we're, this is your chance to make a call out to those people? Like, who are we looking for?
I think we're pretty open to all. I would say we really want to attract folks that are building, that are collaborative, that are inclusive, that are willing to kind of roll up their sleeves and not just take from the ecosystem, but also give. So folks that are kind of going to help us grow and add to it. So that was part of the reason why we published a group of us community builders published the Miami Tech Manifesto, which has 11 principles on kind of what we have been what we've been striving for. Not to say we've achieved it all yet, but what we really want to think about as we continue to grow this ecosystem. So that's something you could see at wearemiamitech.com. And so it's really, I know we use Miami, it's in South Florida kind of interchangeably. Sorry for, we don't mean to be exclusionary. But it's around how can we make sure these people are giving back instead of just taking, and kind of really ingrained and committed to the ecosystem. So I would say that more broadly than there's like a specific industry or type of person.
Perfect. And I know we've got just a few minutes left here. So I wanted to ask one last question of the panel, but then also I know John's got an announcement that we would love to be able to make here this morning. So my next question here, I guess this goes to everybody on the panel, is just how has our local ecosystem benefited startups, mature firms, investors, just the community as a whole? And what do we have here in South Florida that's unique to other areas across the country? Again, if somebody's trying to compare different entrepreneurial or startup ecosystems, what do we have here that makes us stand out?
I'll throw the first thought out, I guess. I think the Latin American Caribbean gateway makes a really, really unique selling point, especially, over the next 20 years or so, how that's going to play out as those countries develop further and become more economically developed, educated, everything. I think that's just going to be a tremendous tailwind for South Florida.
And one thing I could add to that too, that sometimes we don't think about, is just the cultural makeup of South Florida, which is different than anywhere else in the country. And the great thing about that is that we are a risk-taking society, and a lot of cities that try to be innovative aren't necessarily risk takers. And that's one thing that Silicon Valley has done very well. There's risk takers combined with all of the stakeholders. But when we look at our culture and the makeup and this potpourri of individuals, that is a huge asset for us. We're not afraid to tackle anything.
Yeah, I mean, John mentioned earlier about, it's very difficult to compare Florida to Silicon Valley. We have our own special spice, if you will. And, Nova was founded in the 60s. Stanford was in the mid 1800s. So, California's got a legacy here. I think COVID, has accelerated things. So if you go back 6-7 years ago, there wasn't much activity here in Florida at all. And so we were on this amazing trajectory. I think COVID accelerated things, but what makes us unique, as James mentioned, the culture, the Latin American gateway, low taxation, and is very attractive to businesses as well. And in addition to that, it's the size of the checks here. You can pick up a check for $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. It's easier to do that and get publicity associated with that. If you get a check in California for $50,000, you'd have to pay to put an ad in to showcase your business. It's highly possible that you can get a check for $50,000 or $100,000 and be on the cover of the Business Journal. And so I think that gives greater access and exposure to some of these startups. And I think if you're looking at comparatively to some of the larger markets like California, New York, and Boston, I think you can expand and make a big footprint here in a much more demonstrative way that you could in those other markets.
Yeah, to add to that, so yeah, I feel like the whole community is kind of helping you succeed and really trying to lift you up. And we're still, in our growth phase, so you can still have a pretty big impact if you come here. And one other thing that I notice a lot when folks come to visit is they'll come and start meeting with a bunch of the different folks that are here supporting the ecosystem, and they're majority women. And I think everybody always walks away and say, hey, that's unique, and that's something I haven't necessarily seen in a lot of ecosystems. And it just kind of naturally happened, which is great to see. So I think that's definitely something that's unique and exciting that I feel like sometimes with Latin American influence you think, some people may think, oh, macho kind of mentality, but it's really shown how even the male folks in the ecosystem have really uplifted women, and that's not even weird to us to have all these people, like women in positions of power here, which is great to see.
Yeah, you all made wonderful key points. I was actually just kind of jotting down a few as all of you were talking, and actually Todd had put in the chat as well, is that we are actually #1 on the Kaufman Index for startup activities. So I think it's more, that we need the investors and the funding and those people to help us, basically scale up and grow, right? But we are right now #1 as far as for startup activity. But some of the things that you guys mentioned was just low taxes, diversity and inclusion, culture, even our educational institutions, of course, the lifestyle here in South Florida, you don't get in a lot of other areas. But then you made a really, really key point, Jim, that I don't think anybody brought up this whole conversation, which I didn't even think about, is how young we are. Because yes, I think we're compared to other areas across the country, especially Silicon Valley, so much. And at least for me, I don't want to be them. I want to be our own thing, our own culture, our own ecosystem here. But I think we often do forget that, yes, we are very young compared to a lot of these other areas. So we've got more than enough room to grow. And I think we're doing pretty good in comparison right now. So thank you for making that, because I hadn't even thought of that myself. But the last couple of minutes here, I would love to give John the floor here to make a really special announcement this morning. That I just feel everybody would be very excited to hear. So John, if you kind of want to make that announcement this morning for us.
Well, thank you. Breaking news. You're the first to hear it, unless you were online within the last 25 minutes, but a press release went out. So one of the things that I've been fighting for a number of years, I'm finally able to say it is going to happen. I'm a firm believer that South Florida needs to be better connected to the growing opportunities related to the space sector, better alignment with the Space Coast, better alignment with the national system and the international space system. And there is so much happening in the privatization of space right now with inner and outer space, and it is literally a playground for entrepreneurs. So I'm happy to announce that today at NSU, and to be headquartered within the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation, we are creating what we call Level 5 Space Dock. It's LEVL 5 Space Dock, and there's a whole story behind why that name is. And also happy to announce that the director of the new Level 5 Space Dock, which is truly South Florida's first space institute, is Andrew Aldrin. And if you know the Aldrin name, Buzz Aldrin was #1 and #2 with Neil Armstrong to walk on the moon. And Andrew is the son of Buzz, and he resides in Denver, and will be tying the Denver space ecosystem into the South Florida ecosystem. And then we'll grow locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, initially around space entrepreneurship, and then growing into other areas where we know that there are some emerging opportunities. So that announcement just went out, and I'm putting it in the chat release right now.
Yay, congratulations. That's awesome news. So thank you, everybody. And I'll make sure to grab that link as well. We'll share that out for you, John. So I appreciate that. So thank you again, because I know we are right at time. I've got literally 60 seconds left on my clock here, but I just wanted to thank each of you, Jim, John, Maria, James, and of course, Beth, for helping us with ASL. All of you for coming, bright and early this morning. Of course, all the attendees this morning as well, because you all are our tech ecosystem, our startup ecosystem. I mean, the community is what makes our ecosystem here in South Florida. So thank you so much again. And hopefully everybody has a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tech Hub.
Good day.
Thank you.